Okay. Um, The September 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Planning Board is about to convene. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kathy Williams and I'm the town planner and will be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. I will now turn it over to the Planning Board Vice Chairman.
Welcome to the September 2nd Planning Board meeting. My name is Joanne Crowley and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Planning Board. And I'd like to start by taking a roll call for quorum. Brad Goodwin.
Present.
Chris Vincent. Liz Hartsgrove.
Present.
Susan Britta. Susan, you might want to unmute. Susan? Okay, Tom Barron? Tom, you're on mute too. Kathy, what should we do here? Do we need a verbal or is a wave okay?
Susan Britt is here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Good, thank you. Tom? Barron?
Tom has his hand raised, but
Yeah,
oh,
Tom?
wait a minute, Tom. Keep trying.
We'll come back to Tom. Will?
I am not muted and I am present.
Thank you. So Tom Barron? Still can't hear me. Tom, you can't hear? Okay. Kath, what,
I think maybe if Tom, can you not hear us or you just can't speak?
It looks like he's unmuted, but he can't hear you.
Okay. Hang on a moment. I'll try to call him on the phone.
okay.
Kathy, I can't, for some reason, I can't mute or unmute. It just
Well,
still,
We got you now.
We can hear you.
uh,
We can hear you now.
I don't know. I'm hearing nothing.
Well, we can hear you.
Hear you now, but you can't hear us.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
But you can't hear us. You can't participate in the meeting.
What can I say?
So are you, I can hear myself calling. Am I on speakerphone?
Yes,
Can you call in to the phone number and then do both? Do a call in so you can hear? And,
I'll do that.
okay, all right.
I'll do that. That's it.
Just a suggestion. Maybe just log out, Tom, and log
I'm
back
just
in,
trying to verify the number.
or give it the Arthur Fonzarelli, one or the other. But give it a try. Just
Yeah, worst case scenario, I think that'll work if you call in. If not, then you might have to log out and log back in.
I think that might be better.
Okay.
I'll do that. I'm
Okay.
gonna log out and come back.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll
sounds good.
wait for you. Kathy, do we, just as an aside, do we have any other participants?
We do have other participants. We have Mark Robinson, who's for the 555 Route 6A. And there's a phone number that we don't have. We also have Tom Nicanello. And then we did have John O'Reilly, but he appears to be gone now and hasn't come back. And he was going to be representing. I could go ahead and we have
1, 2,
quorum,
3,
but I could,
testing 1, 2, 3.
we can hear you. Can you hear
Tom.
us?
Still no go.
Why don't you try calling into the other
Still no
number?
go.
Oh, there's Mark Robinson has come back on, so we should be good.
And John O'Reilly was with the ANR, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Do we need to have him be a participant?
When we get there, typically, we had spoken previously, and I'm just going to share my screen and I'll unmute him and he can talk. It's up to
Okay.
you. We can certainly
So
do that.
I
if you'd
will
like.
introduce him then once he gets back on.
Do you want me to read the participation
Sure.
portion?
Sure.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Yarmouth Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or the live feed on the Yarmouth YouTube channel. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing in to the phone number provided on the notice of meeting. This meeting will also be posted on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel for future viewing. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with this virtual meeting. For all meetings, all audience participants enter the virtual meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or the moderator. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. Do not use speakerphone or Bluetooth devices when
Enter
speaking.
your meeting ID followed by pound.
All votes must be roll call votes. I think you're going to have to put your phone to your ear, Tom, so that we don't hear you. For applicants and presenters, applicants can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The moderator will unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak during their portion of the agenda.
Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Applicants shall identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation.
Throughout the meeting.
Applications or presentations provided by the applicant will be displayed in the virtual meeting by the moderator, or for larger projects, temporary panelist capabilities will be given to presenters to share their screens while giving their presentation. Public comment. None of the items on the agenda this evening are public hearings that require a designated public comment period. However, public comment can be taken at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public may request to speak by selecting the raise hand button or *9 on their phone and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. As an alternative to making comments via the online audio or phone, you may also submit your comments to the moderator via the virtual meeting chat function. To do this, click on the chat icon and type your message. When prompted, the moderator will read comments and questions into the record. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record and then provide their comment. I will now hand the meeting back over to the chair.
Thank you, Kathy. The first item on our agenda this evening is an application for endorsement of a subdivision plan where approval is not required. It's ANR plan number 2935. Kathy, will we have Mr. O'Reilly join us at this point?
I've unmuted both Mark Robinson and John O'Reilly, and I'll share my screen.
Hello, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Tonight, we are presenting an approval not required plan for Jacqueline Rivero. The total parcel has about 34.3 acres of total land. That's a mixture of a large bog, a wetland, and then some upland. The proposal is to divide the parcel into 4 lots. We have parcel A, parcel B, and parcel C. Those lots are considered unbuildable due to either area or frontage. And then we have the 4th lot being designated as Lot 1. That is going to be retained by the Rivero, Mrs. Rivero. It contains just shy of 5.5 acres and a little over 5 acres of upland. It has plenty of frontage with over 800 feet on 2 town roads, Weir Road and, of course, Route 6A. The purpose of the creation of the 3 parcels is so the Riveros can gift these parcels to the trust, which they've been working with Mark Robinson of the Compact with. I believe he may be on the line, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
come in.
Hello?
Hi, I think the chair
I'm
just
sorry.
moved away for one
no,
moment.
Sorry about that. Start the video. Let's, hold on. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Sorry about that. Sorry, Mr. O'Reilly. Any discussion, questions from board members?
Yes, Madam Chair, may I actually hear from the Conservation Trust? Is Mark Robinson here?
Yes, this is Mark.
Hi, Mark. Can you give us the Conservation Trust's feedback on this application, please?
Yes, I've been working with Jackie Rivero for several years now. And she inherited this property from her uncle a long time ago. And we've had a number of discussions on various outcomes for this property. But what it's boiled down to is a phased conveyance of parcels A, B, and C to the Native Land Conservancy with a conservation restriction to be held by the Yarmouth Conservation Trust, which is the nonprofit 501c3 organization serving in Yarmouth, preserving open space. And so working together, these organizations, with my guidance as the project manager, will be working with Jackie Rivero over time to have her donate those properties to the Native Land Conservancy for conservation purposes. As you may know, this immediately abuts the town well field just to the south across the power line easement. And most of that property, parcels A, B, and C, are within the zone 2, which is the zone of contribution to the town's drinking water supply. Ms. Rivero is entitled to receive state income tax credits for these donations. And that's why they're being spaced out over time so that she can maximize those tax benefits. So the land will be held in conservation with a belt and suspenders approach, being owned by a conservation group in fee simple, subject to a perpetual conservation restriction approved by the town and the state, and also recorded in perpetuity. So we have meeting with the Yarmouth Conservation Commission tomorrow night to review the conservation restriction for parcel A. Parcel A was the one that we donated this fall. We've been waiting for this plan. The plan approval is necessary, of course, for the conveyancing to occur. So there's no development associated with this plan. Everything that's sort of a status quo in terms of any buildings on the property. You see them depicted there on lot 1, and there'll be no buildings associated with parcels A, B, and C.
Thank you for that. Can you elaborate for our viewers as well as the board as the relationship once it gets transferred or donated to the Conservation Trust? What is the relationship for any type of maintenance or anything with any town departments for financial purposes, personnel, any of that kind of stuff? Can you elaborate on that for us, Mark?
The town will have no involvement with these parcels. It would strictly be a partnership between the nonprofits.
Thank you.
Any other questions of either Mr. Robinson or Mr. O'Reilly? Yes, Will, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the overview. Just to make sure I'm wrapping my brain around this, is this, from what I can tell, is this the parcel that used to have horses on it?
I don't know about the horses. Part of lot 1
Or there was like a farm stand kind of
was.
thing going on?
Yes,
Yes,
several
part of lot 1
greenhouses.
Part of lot 1 was leased to a commercial farmer for a couple of years. That's been out of commission now
Right.
for 5 years.
All right, I just, you look at Google Maps, you have to trust but verify. So that's why I wanted to ask. Thank you. No further comments.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I have one more question.
Certainly.
Kathy, can you, for all of us, can you elaborate actually what is the process after this? Once they go through conservation, does this require a selectman approval for the A&R or anything like that, please?
No, the A&R would be totally the planning board. endorsement. And there's very few things that you can use to deny an A&R, as most of you know. It's really what you're looking at is there adequate frontage and is there adequate access to the parcels? And the only parcel that would actually be a buildable lot is lot 1, and that has adequate access.
And then what
frontage.
would happen if conservation puts any restrictions that we would need to be aware of after our vote? Because if they're meeting tomorrow, what would they be required to come back, or just a?
No, they would not be required to come back.
Thank
The only two things we're looking at are adequate access and adequate frontage, and they're all
just
good to
making
go.
sure. Thank you.
Well, good. Thank you for that, Liz. Good questions for our listening public and for members of the board like me. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? May I have a motion then to endorse the A&R Plan 2935 dated August 14th, 2020?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote again. Tom Barron? Susan Britta?
Aye.
Brad Goodwin?
I approve.
Liz Hartsgrove?
Aye.
Will Rubenstein?
Aye.
Joanne Crowley, yes. And it passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark and John, for participating with us tonight, and to the property owner for keeping conservation in mind for the town of Yarmouth. That's very important to us, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much, and good luck
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Have a great night. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good luck tomorrow.
I just want to let them know that I need to coordinate with you, Joanne, to get the Mylar signed, and then I'll get in touch with John and make sure that he can either pick it up or we'll somehow get it to him.
Okay,
You want these plans dropped back off?
No, I actually have enough left over, so I'm good. But thank you for asking, Brad. Appreciate it.
okay. Item number 1, we've finished up. Second on our agenda this evening are just an update and further discussion on visioning. As you know, Kathy and I appeared before the Board of Selectmen last week. Tom Barron joined us in the audience. And we had a successful review with them. There was I think some good questions, concerns about access to our planning process by some who may not be internet savvy. And we assured them of the outreach we're going to make on surveys, both paper and online. So we I think addressed that. Selectman Stone had that particular question. Mark Forrest, Selectman Forrest, the chair, who's participated in this planning with the town of Brewster, was particularly enthusiastic about it. And that is always helpful. And then Tracy Post was concerned, and Kathy addressed this in her note back to you, with regard to Comaquid residents who received different water bills. So we're going to work to make sure that we cover that small gap. I believe there were 50 or 60, Kathy, perhaps.
It turned out to only be 36 people, according to the water department.
Very small number. So looks like we've got it covered. And there was some activity with further looking at the Bluestone Group. Susan, you might have something for us next week, I understand, if you want to talk to that. And
Yes.
then Liz, you had looked at our presentation and the public viewing of our schedule. Did either of you want to comment on that or ask any questions about the selectmen's meeting that we attended last week?
I'd like
Madam, go ahead, Brad.
I just want to ask a question. I apologize. When we had tanglements with the Comaquid group over the years, they were usually represented by an attorney. And one of the things that would jump out of us is they always were concerned that they couldn't watch our meetings because their cable system was not tuned to what we provide in Yarmouth. So I don't know if this is going back a few years, but I don't know if they have access to the same local cable TV that we do in a majority of Yarmouth.
Okay. That could be another access point that we need to check with them on. And that's primarily through the Comaquid Association?
It's something, I can go back in my notes and look. Usually when things came up, they would be represented by some kind of homeowner association group. And usually a very well-spoken gentleman would come before us. And he was always very pleasant, but he was just a little bit upset that this came at them at the last minute because they don't have the same access to information streams that we do in conventional Yarmouth.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we pay some important attention to that. Tom? You're muted. You're muted. We can hear you.
Can you,
We can hear
can you
you.
hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
You're going to have to take your phone off speakerphone though, while you're speaking. Or we're
All
hearing
right.
both.
It's off.
Great.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The Comaquid situation, it just so happens right here behind me, I have a map of the Comaquid issue, and as you say, there's about 32 to 36 properties that are involved on the Yarmouth side of the line. I know that Jeff is working on this has been working on this for the last couple of years about the discrepancy in the billing that these folks have been subject to. And so there have been other contacts already in place. I have not seen anything from Jeff or anyone from that side as to what sort of solutions they may have been working on. I assume that there's going to have to be a construction project with additional piping in for those 30 some odd properties. Some of them haven't even been built yet, particularly at Sisters Circle. There's still 3 or 4 or 5 that are still unbuilt. So there's considerable effort that's going to be over there in that corner. A separate set of pipes, I think, is the solution. But as I said, I haven't seen any engineering proposals or even suggestions from Jeff. And I think it's something that it might be realistic to have Jeff join a meeting with the planning to discuss that, just so that we'd be aware of it. But that's it in a nutshell.
Kathy.
They did do a water update to the Board of Selectmen in August where they talked specific, I don't know if Tom needs to put his phone on now, specifically talked about the Comaquid and how much it would cost in order to go from point A to point B. The reason they're on Barnstable is because of the difficulty and the cost associated with getting them on the Yarmouth system. Right now, what they do is they get a rebate check for the difference between what they pay in Barnstable to what they would pay in Yarmouth. And that is significantly less than a construction project that would be necessary in order to serve the 36, plus, because as Tom mentioned, there are some vacant parcels there. So there is that update from the water department that was done in August to the Board of Selectmen, which might be good to review because there was some good information and some slides that were included in that.
Okay, thank you for that, Kathy. Any further discussion, comments, questions? We have the course. Yep, go ahead, Liz. Yep.
I watched it from the comfort of my home, and Joanne, I want to say thank you. You were magnificent. You represented our board extremely professionally. And Kathy, thank you so much for doing that and starting the conversation. I was very proud to be part of the planning board and our team. And so I thought it was a great presentation. So thank you very much, Joanne.
You are certainly welcome. I learned a long time ago from a boss when I was much younger that there is no replacement for preparation. So I was well prepared by our town planner. Thank you,
My
Kathy.
motto is it takes a lot of effort to make things look effortless.
Uh, Any other comments? Susan, did you want to just chime in at all with the Bluestone Group? We were able to dig it up.
Oh, I got it. And
Yeah, good.
I got actually two other documents. They're a little dated. One is 2010. It's about a Route 28, a plan for Route 28, a business plan, the Bluestone report, and there's a third one, again, sort of a narrative kind of Route 28, really focused on Route 28, not a broader vision of the town, but mostly economic development along Route 28. So I'm hopefully by next week and a few weeks after, I'll be able to sort of summarize what's in there to see if there's anything that we can cull from there and use for, future discussion, see if there's really been any change in 10 years about what people wanted 10 years ago versus what they're looking at right now, what they think was important right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Kathy sent out the draft of the consultant contract. We're going to be trying to move that forward quickly. Procurement through the town process takes a reasonable amount of time, but we're going to try to move that. Kathy's going to move that as quickly as she can. And that will be an evolving process as Kathy's described it to me. Kathy, if you want to jump in, they're going to, help us in a bunch of different ways, but the scope of their work, we have the best sense of it now, but it may need some adjustment along the way as we go. Kat, do you want to jump in there a little bit more about what our expectations with them are?
Sure. I think that
Thank you.
comment's very apropos to the whole process. We've got a vision or process that we have in place, but we may need to adapt and change as we go forward. Same thing with the scope of services that we have are being proposed here with Horsley Witten. I think it's really just to help us as much as we possibly can, kind of vetting some of the work that we've already done with our workshop scripts and the different engagement plans to see if they have anything to offer there. And I think one of the main emphasis is training everyone here with regard to the virtual workshops and how you can be those facilitators in those breakout rooms and what's the best way to present all that information, and also helping us develop that survey, the first survey that's going to go out. So they'll help develop the questions and put that on SurveyMonkey format that we can then launch and get input that way. And then, of course, another big thing is taking all of this information that we end up getting and trying to help us compile it into some categories and goals and make it a little bit of comprehensible information from a wide range, I hope, of comments that we will probably receive.
Yes, Will.
So, Madam Chair, I have a question about task number 2 specifically. Is it time to talk about the actual proposal, or is that where we're?
No, we can, if we've got some basic questions, I think.
Yeah, just a very basic question.
Kathy will be able to answer.
Very basic. Task 2 talks about developing the survey, and that's, to me, is a ginormous crossroads, because the quality of the survey has a direct influence on the quality, or a contribution to the quality of the entire rest of the 18 to 24 months. And so I would like to know to what level you are looking for planning board input and feedback on the actual survey. And I mean down into the nitty gritties of making and building the survey, because that's something I'm keenly aware of and I would love to participate in if that is the right thing that you wish us to do.
I think this is why I want to get the Horsley Witten on board. I mean, they've done a good job of talking to us and getting the scope together, but they haven't given us any real advice. But the original visioning, the first visioning survey may need to be a little bit looser than surveys that you normally get. And this may be a little bit difficult, and I really want to hear what Horsley Witten has to say, because if we're really trying to do a general SWOT analysis, you don't want to ask people leading questions. You don't want to give A, B, and C, because then they'll pick one of those when their real answer would have been something completely different, and they'd have to fill in the other column. So I'm concerned that maybe this survey, if we get a lot of feedback, we may have a lot of data that needs to be processed because they're not going to be A, B, C, D type typical survey monkeys. They might actually be what you get a lot of times with that other comment where you get these individual comments. And talking to Horsley Witten, how you take that information, how you process it, I almost wonder whether it's not more like a spreadsheet database where you can trigger on certain words that keep coming up and assembling the comments in that way and kind of breaking them down into the 4 different groups of the, you know, the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats and trying to come up with some cohesive concepts from those. But that's something that I'm really interested to get input from Horsley Witten on that. In Brewster, Joanne and I talked a little bit about this afternoon about what Brewster did. They had their survey later, after they had the visioning and they had developed the goals and they had very specific questions they wanted to ask people, like, do you think, you know, the town of Brewster would benefit from a community center? Strongly feel this way, moderately, you know, that type of thing to help gauge some of the goals that they had come up with that came out of the original visioning. I think they did a lot of their work through workshops. They're a smaller community and they weren't in COVID-19. So that might have made it a little bit easier. But I think what we may end up finding is that we end up having a significant amount of individualized information coming from the survey that then needs to be processed. And that's one of the things that Joanne and I were talking about that might need to be finessed a little bit with the Horsley Witten scope as we move forward, because we might need a little bit more help from them on processing that data, depending on the volume of data that we get. So that.
And I want to make the best use of our time twice a month. So when we hear and get something after we've executed with Horsley Witten, maybe there's some ways to do some things offline, meaning outside of the scope of these twice a month meetings, so that progress can continue to be made if that is the right direction. Because I agree, if we bend the survey to a certain direction, then that's not going to serve anybody's purposes. Certainly not in the initial phase. As you described in Brewster, they had a platform to stand on when they had their survey, as opposed to we haven't even established the platform yet. So that's why I wanted to mention it now, and I look forward to seeing what they come up with, and we'll contribute on and off and all lines.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. Good. That's a good, I think that's important. Our influence on this and our participation certainly cannot be limited to twice a month. And my intention is to be as transparent and involving as possible. There are certain things that we shouldn't get in the weeds on, that Kathy and her staff certainly can take, but you are absolutely right. And my interest in the survey as the launch is critical, because we're just going to get back what we asked for. So getting the right questions out there is the key first step. So I'm all in with you on that, Will. So thank you for raising that. And Kathy, Kathy and I have talked about this, and we're hopeful that the consultant is gonna guide us just the way we want them to. And if not, we'll take over the steering wheel. Any other questions or comments about the contract? I think Kathy's going to try to move that as quickly as she can. I'm not. Do you need any? You don't need any kind of a formal vote or anything from us on this. This isn't considered an operational consulting.
No, I just wanted to be sure that you guys saw the changes, really.
I just wanted to ask one more question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Please.
Just, Kathy, your familiarity with Nathan, Krista, Craig, and Jeff. I mean, when's the last time you guys worked together? And hopefully it was a smashing success.
Okay, there's a couple things. Horsley Witten is a well-known company, and we've obviously worked with Nate.
Well, I know
before.
that, but I don't know you as well. So I just was checking it. Sorry.
Okay. But one of the things with the town of Yarmouth is we have a certain on-call list of engineers and consultants that we can use without having to go through an entire RFP procurement process. Horsley Witten was vetted when this original on-call list was done for planning studies, and they were incorporated into that. Nate, as Brad mentioned, worked with the planning board very closely back in 2012, and again, supplementally, I think maybe in 2014 or 15, when we did some minor modifications to the VCOD. So we're familiar with working with him during that time.
Great.
I
Thank you
haven't
very
worked
much.
with him since then, but
Thank you.
Okay, and anything else, Kat, that you wanted to add about,
yeah, all the information that you included in your packets obviously it's been uploaded onto the town website and also went out to all the people via Constant Contact. So if anyone, hopefully everyone's all signed up on Constant Contact now. We are also going to be starting basically a sign up campaign where we're going to start getting the word out to all the different committees and boards and civic associations and trying to say, you know, it's coming, we're getting close, we're working on scheduling. But in the meantime, if you want to stay up to date, please come to the website and sign up so we can get as many people signed up as possible. One of the places that I don't have a lot of really good contacts is with the school system. So I don't know whether Liz and Will can help with that in some way, an email contact. Typically what we do is we send out the email to the president of an association or the staff person or the chairman of a committee or board and ask them to then, you know, see if they would be so kind as to send it along to their membership. And that seemed to work fairly well before, but I don't have anyone with the school. So if Will could get me something, that would be great.
I'll work on it and zap it to you.
All right, thank you.
And I'll work on it with Liz. I mean, I'm not taking over.
No, it's fine. I think we need to make sure that because we have school choice on the Cape, that we need to make sure that we hit all of the school districts, Sturgis and Nauset, Regional Tech, Upper Regional Tech, all of those, you know, Barnstable actually. So I think that DY would have those numbers as to where all of our families go and which school districts. So that'll help us. So we're not occupying or using valuable time of the schools that our kids don't go to.
Yeah, I will. That's a really good point because of the money changing hands, when someone leaves the district or comes into our district, that all is very carefully tracked.
So is that something that you can help with? If I get some words out, is that something that you guys can then help distribute to the schools?
Well, but one step before that is with the help of the regional district's office, central office, they can help make sure that it's done effectively.
Right. I'm wondering if
HIPAA 3 million times.
Right. I'm wondering if you guys can kind of take the lead on that with the schools and try and find out some of that information.
Liz,
stuff like
would
that
it be
would be very
okay if
helpful.
Yes, count me in.
Madam Chair, we'll do it offline.
okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
That's a good catch on the regional school districts. We do contribute a fair amount to them, as well as the choice schools and charter schools. So although they're a smaller proportion of our population, they're there and we don't want to forget them. So whatever Liz, you and Will can put together for Kathy, that would be
Awesome.
that would be very helpful. Okay.
And then the last thing that we're kind of working on was those data sheets that we talked about that just provide a brief summary of kind of like some data and trends in Yarmouth and kind of what programs we already have and then kind of the things that we're working on, just so people can get a little background of what's going on. So those have been drafted and sent out to staff for comment, and I'm really hoping that we can have drafts of those available at the next meeting. These are not a deep dive into anything. They're just kind of general information for the public who may not be familiar with some of the things that are going on in Yarmouth. The other point to make is that they don't address COVID-19. So if there's been shifts in something here and there because of COVID-19, these data sheets are not going to reflect that, because we kind of want to say where are we typically, where were we before COVID versus trying to skew everything to COVID, because that's not what the visioning process is. We want to see where we want to be in the future. And hopefully this is just a bump, just an anomaly, and that we will get back soon to where we are. So that's something that I hope to have available for the next meeting.
Okay, moving on. I'd like to go to the meeting minutes from our August 19th meeting. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting on August 19th, 2020?
So moved as written.
Second, I'm back.
Hello, Tom. We'll do a roll call again. Brad Goodwin? Will Robinson?
I can be Will Robinson too.
There was too many Robinsons
No,
on there.
you're thinking of that show from the
I know what I'm
60s.
thinking
Maybe
of.
Joe Robbins.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I'm not in danger. I'm Will Rubenstein, and I vote aye.
Danger, danger, Will. Liz Hartsgrove,
Approved. Yes.
Tom Barron,
Aye.
Joanne Crowley approved. Susan Britta?
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much. My apologies, Mr. Rubenstein.
I second and
Okay.
accept your apology. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Board of Appeals, agendas and decisions. And Kathy, you want to, I don't think there was anything there.
Nope,
for us?
the ZBA, no, I don't think there was anything that's been sent out since our last meeting, but the
No.
ZBA did approve with conditions the Great Island Plaza project on the 27th. So hopefully if she can move forward with her financing, we might actually see that corner cleaned up, and it would
Oh,
be
that would be
amazing.
great. Susan?
Yeah, one thing that that came up in both sessions is the concept of phased development and the difficulty the BZA had with trying to preserve the authority of the town to ensure that the second phase occurred. And they had no hook into ensuring that. So that may be something in the future as this board deals with the bigger, that we are very conscious or become conscious or try to think about this notion of phase development and whether it's a good thing, bad thing, and if they decide to do it, how do we ensure that the town's ability to get to phase two is a right preserved by the town and not held by the developer. There was a lot of discussion about that, and very good discussion. I think Kathy, you were part of the discussion. It is a difficult notion, particularly when you're dealing with financing. And we may be faced with that with other development along 28, especially as the water project comes down 28 and some of those larger parcels become available for development. But there was a lot of discussion about that. It was a good discussion too. It wasn't contentious. It was just very thoughtful discussion about the notion of phase development and how are we going to approach it. All committees in town, how are we going to approach it?
I think the ZBA did a really good job of trying to get as many of the important components included in phase one. So all of the stuff that you see from Route 28 and Winslow Gray, all of that is going to be part of phase one,
Right.
with the parking that was in the rear not as visible, something that would be done as part of phase two.
Right.
So they really worked hard to get that done.
Right. And originally that was not the case. Originally, a lot of the things that were important to the town, like the buffers along 28 and the plantings and trees and things along Winslow Gray and 28 were all in phase two. So I think Dick Neat sort of led the way and said, hey, wait a minute, what are we doing here? And it was built around this concept of phase development. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring it up. It's something we should be aware of as we start looking at things along, maybe part of the, a sub part of the visioning discussion as we talk about development along 28.
Okay. Any committee member updates? I don't have any. There were no committee meetings for me. Anyone else?
Same here.
Quiet,
Nothing.
quiet August. Thank you. Correspondence, Kath?
I just sent you the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
And they are doing the conservation restriction tomorrow night. And then I guess there's more stuff on the short-term rental over in Barnstable for the
Barnstable, yeah.
council and planning board meetings.
Did anybody see a date on that? I couldn't find a date.
It's the 14th and for the planning board and the 17th for the
All
town
right, I
council.
missed it.
or city
I read it
council?
twice. All right,
It's
thank
way
you.
it's way near the end, my friend.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Tom?
Yes, Kathy, I noted in the conservation list of their work, the minor modifications on the Parker River Restoration Project. Do you know what that
Yeah,
might be?
yeah, I do. That project has very strict time of year restrictions with regard to when you can do any silt causing work within the river, and it's right now it's November 15th is when they could start putting in the sheeting. What they're hoping to do is start a little bit earlier, November 1st, in order to put that sheeting in. That's something that they've worked with through DMF with Carl Von Hohn, the Director of Natural Resources, but it was also included as part of the condition of the Conservation Commission order of conditions So they're just revisiting that to make sure they're okay with that.
Have they removed the sheeting from the first half of the construction? That's in the river?
I don't think they have.
Well, I made comment to Jeff about that because the whole purpose of the project is to give a wider channel for tidal flow. Yet the narrowness of the sheeting makes it even narrower than it was before. And the rush of water in and out of that very narrow, now even narrower channel is causing scour on the marsh side as well as the river side. But nobody seems to have taken notice of that and made any comment to it. Most of it will probably all be not visible because it'll be under the water line, but both sides of the construction are being subject to a real jet of water going in both directions as the tide changes. So that will continue with the new sheeting for the second half of and in fact will effectively put more potential pressure on the marsh side because the jet will be narrowed not just once but twice because of the second phase of construction. And like I said, it's amazing that conservation or even Carl have not made any comment about this, because I think there's something very seriously happening there. Again, probably just covered by water and you're not seeing it, but it's there. That's my comment. And what was their modification for seasonal adjustment?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I'm sorry, Susan, yes.
I just have one quick question. Kathy, I noticed on one of the Board of Selectmen agendas, there was a line item about the drive-in site being revisited or revitalized or something like that. Is that a new agenda item for them? A couple of weeks ago, the drive-in site was on their Tuesday night agenda. And I think for discussion, or I don't know what it was, but it caught my eye because it was the drive-in site.
Sure. Well, the drive-in site has been licensed to Adam Epstein of Innovations, Arts and Entertainment. And that's kind of what everyone's been seeing there and having initially more drive-in movies, but now he's been having more live concerts. There's been some, he had a request before the Board of Selectmen to extend his license agreement through the fall, through October 31st, which they granted. He had also asked for the ability to serve alcohol, which they did not allow. So they did ask for some input from the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee with regard to the existing operations there and then the future operations of the site for events. So the drive-in site is they did have a site visit recently, and then they're going to meet again to kind of discuss it, to give a presentation before the Board of Selectmen on their September 15th meeting.
Okay, I noticed at one point there were a lot of not a lot, certainly a fair amount of correspondence from neighbors, especially along Niagara Road, complaining about not so much the noise of the production, but the blowing of the horns as people leave.
They've done I gotta admit, Adam has gone above and beyond to try and resolve any issue that he finds, and he's very open to discussing things with the neighbors. He's given them all his personal cell phone number. They call him. They've really cut down on the honking significantly. They now have an ability, so the minute someone honks, they can push a button and it'll say, please no honking, respect our neighbors. And it's almost gotten it down to zero. Bruce Murphy, the health director, he's been out there quite a bit, obviously with the COVID-19 precautions, and they're also serving food there. So he's been monitoring that very closely. And he just actually sent an email saying how there's been no honking recently at all at some of the events that have been going on. So he's really, really working hard. And he's also doing a lot of different things to help muffle the sound. He even has like this, he just sent me some information today about this dome that they're going to put around the drummer to keep the noise down further from the drummer. So he's really going out of his way to try and to reduce the sound from that. But if this is something that the town is envisioning as being an event space that's going to draw tourism and draw people to the town of Yarmouth, you know, there will be some noise. There's going to be some impacts to neighbors, but it's, as with anything, it's always a function of the frequency and the severity. And I think a lot of those things can be adjusted in order to make it something that's, you know, mutually acceptable to both parties. So he's definitely working very hard on that.
Okay, thank you.
I can vouch for that because he's a client. I introduced him to Yarmouth, and he's sunk over $450,000 into the property so far. He's hoping to make that back and break even by Halloween. He was losing a lot of money on movies, so he shifted to live events. That stretch of Pawcatuck Drive has always been difficult, as we know over the years. And Adam is trying, as Kathy said, to go above and beyond and try to make a win-win and make peace with the neighbors. To put it bluntly, he's trying to keep his nose clean, very, very clean, like he did on Martha's Vineyard, so that next year, if he brings an actual concert and we've flattened the curve and found maybe a cure, then the town selectmen will say, hey, you did a great job last year. You know, let's try an actual event. So that's what he's hoping for.
And interestingly, he's attracting some really high-end performers. I mean, Grace Potter, as an example, a couple of weeks ago, was significant. I was like, Grace Potter's going to be in town?
Well, he does bookings for over 200 venues across the United States. He's out of Chicago. He just has a summer residence on the vineyard, and that's how we struck up a conversation. We've been advertising for him over the years. We tried to use the airfields at Marston's Mills. We thought that'd be more of a Woodstock kind of thing, but it fell apart. So then we stepped into Kathy Green's life.
Kathy Green.
Carrie
Wow.
Green. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Rye's been up all day and night. Rye's got a big day tomorrow, so I'm sorry. We've been up all day.
I'm not usually called Kathy Green, but you're the second person in 2 weeks to do that to me. So it's funny. That's why I
We
laugh.
had Lost in Space. I figured we could shift.
Yeah, right. You and I, Will and I are.
I apologize.
No worries, my friend.
Upcoming meetings. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. Kathy, you're expecting that we might be able to see some of those data sheets as part of that meeting.
Yeah.
I wanted to remind everybody, committee assignments. If you haven't done some sniffing around as to what committees you'd like to be on, please do that. As you know, I'm currently on Capital and CEDC. Please feel free to call me to ask me about those. I was thinking about this, Kathy. The couple of the planning board members who left, who were on those other committees, I'm wondering if they might be accessible to talking about kind of the current state of the committees they were on, like the Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah, the trust is a weird one because Tom was only on the trust because he was on the CPA. It wasn't a direct appointment.
Oh, okay. All right.
From that, but yeah, I think Lee is actually going to stay on the RAC, but he's going to become the North Side representative, and I'm hoping Tom Roach will also stay on the DISUC as an at-large member. When we so that's so they're still familiar and they're still staying on.
Oh, good.
Those two
That's good to
particular
know.
ones. Yeah,
that's good to know. Okay.
Madam Chair, can I mention one small business item, which is I've served on the DY Intermediate Middle School, I think is the official title, school building committee for the last 3 years. And in 2 weeks, there's a pretty big crossroads where we'll be at 60% construction plans, which get submitted to the MSBA on the 3rd, I think it's the 22nd. And that is to say 60 days later, right before Thanksgiving, we'll be at 90%. And, crossing all appropriate digits, that means there will be bidding. There might be some bidding going on at the end of this calendar year for this project. And I feel like it's my duty, because I'm doing some other things like all of us, that I maybe mention these things when the big milestones are happening, because
good.
ultimately these things all intersect with the planning board, and that's a big one. So
Yeah,
it's-
thank you for that.
it's been a long process that we're not going to go over right now, but it is a pretty big milestone, and the state is very much committed to our project. And unfortunately for the other communities that didn't make it as far as we had before COVID-19, we are in a pretty reasonable place.
Oh, that's good to know. No more major hurdles, lawsuits, trouble, difficulty. We're good. We're pretty good to go. The drawings are being prepared and
Yeah.
become editable documents.
Yeah, we'll be there by November. So I want to be
Yeah, that's
fair.
great.
We're not quite at 90%, which we will be by Thanksgiving, but not expecting too much turbulence. If there is any, I'll share.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else for our, on the horizon, Kathy, for the September 16th meeting that you know is coming up?
Not at this point. There is, at some point, we will be getting a preliminary subdivision for the 15 acres on 6A. It's right near, it's on the south side, right before you get to the Royal 2. So that's something that I'm kind of surprised we don't have it already, but that's something that will be coming up. I do think that maybe as we start talking about meetings, I do think we may need to meet more than twice a month as things start going. We need to really, I have a feeling things are going faster and faster and faster, and then pretty soon they're going to start rolling very, very quickly, so that we're prepared for the information kickoff meeting as well as the virtual meeting. So just kind of keep that in mind, that we may need to have some more planning meetings in order to keep things moving along.
Yep, the calendar is going to get full this fall for sure. Okay, anything else anyone wanted to mention? Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call again. Susan,
Aye.
Brad,
Approved, yes.
Will,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Joanne, yes. Okay, thank you all for your time tonight, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, if not sooner.
Have a good Labor Day.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you,
very much,
everyone.
Kathy. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.